Are you wondering how to make investment plans that you actually stick to? Or how to prioritize when things change or when resources are not available? In this video, I'll take you through exactly how to do that. How to make plans, investment plans that you actually stick to, and what to do when, your life doesn't go the way you thought it would. How do you adjust your plans? My name is Val Njoroge. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Africa's Pocket, your one-stop shop to learn about, plan for, and act on your finances. I want to take you back to where I had this realization that, I had great plans. I used to make really concrete goals. I still do. I use the SMART method. And somehow along the way, if things changed, if the plan didn't go exactly how it was sort of in my spreadsheet or in my head, then I would be paralyzed almost. I wouldn't be able to take action and kind of keep moving. And as we were building Investable, our new course on investing with Rena Hicks, she shared this idea of values clarification with me. And when I did that exercise, things changed for me. Interestingly, I always kind of knew what my values were, and my goals are sort of driven by my values. But just because I didn't know what they were and I didn't know how I ranked them, it created this, fight within me. I wasn't able to make decisions when there were limited resources. So my plan worked perfectly on an Excel sheet. It worked perfectly in my mind, but all sorts of things happen. You could have an emergency, and so you can't invest as much as you thought you would in a certain year. Or you could have a life-changing event. Somebody in your family, someone close to you could get sick, or you could experience something. You could maybe, for example, last year, Black Lives Matter was something very prevalent in our community, in our society. Maybe that changes what you value. And so having this idea of values really, really helped me with prioritization. So knowing where to start when it comes to my investments, knowing what to focus on at a certain time, and how to adjust if things change. So in this video, I'm going to give you 4 steps to making investment plans that you can actually stick to, that you actually will stick to, and that will give you a framework for making changes if you need to. So the first step is really understand what your values are. And I know it sounds so mushy, it sounds so fluffy, like what are values? Where do you even start? But in Investable, we actually take you through a super fun exercise where you start with a lot of words and you narrow them down. You really drill down and come up with 5 to 6 words that, really define your purpose on this earth. It's quite incredible. When I did this exercise, I came up with six values that have kind of guided my life. A few of them I knew in advance. Some of them were new to me. When I narrowed it down, I was like, that is important to me. And it's interesting when I look back at my life, my goals are driven by my values. I just didn't know that is what was happening. And the other thing that was interesting is that I didn't know how I ranked them. So I knew what they were. I knew that, I care about excellence. I care about legacy, especially of the African continent. I care about my family. I care about community. I know those things, but I didn't know in which order I care about them. I didn't know what's more important to me than the other. And I didn't realize, it's one of those things you know, but you don't know explicitly. I didn't realize how often the ranking of these values change. So typically your core values will stay the same, but the way that you care about them does tend to change based on what's happening in your life. And so that was such a big insight for me. And so that's your first step, is understand what your values are. And here I'd recommend 5 to 6 major values that you care about. I've seen families do this as a family. I think it's obviously important to start as an individual and then start adding the people in your life to understand the spectrum of the things that you care about. The second thing is to now tie your goals to your values. And again, this might be happening already instinctively, but it is so interesting to actually have 6 words in front of you and then say, for example, legacy. What is my strategy to leave a legacy on the African continent? And that actually forms your goals. So for me, it became so clear that excellence, for example, really drove my decision to go to business school and to go to the kind of business school that I went to go to a top tier school. And the thing is, like, now that I've achieved that, for example, excellence is still important to me, but it's not necessarily at the forefront of the choices that I'm making. I'm already kind of on that path. So the opportunities that have come out of going for the MBA have helped me continue with that journey of excellence, and it doesn't have as much of a pull or as much of a forefront as it did before. But now that I'm done with business school, in my situation, legacy is really at the forefront of my decision making. So when I think about the decision to start Africa's Pocket, that is a legacy driven goal. And the reason why I've started Africa's Pocket is to be able to grow a global company, to be able to exit for a lot of money one day, and then eventually to be able to invest in African startups. So you see how it's so closely, that goal is so closely tied to legacy. And the third thing that now happens is that you will now make investment decisions based on those goals. So let me take the example of going to school. When I was planning to go for my MBA, my investment decisions were entirely driven by that. So I knew that I needed a huge lump sum to be able to pay for tuition. I knew I needed about $40,000 because I was hoping I'd get some scholarships, some debt, etc. But let's call it $40,000. Now, knowing that number and knowing that I had a certain amount of time to be able to actually do this MBA, or I wanted to do it in a certain amount of time, allowed me to work backwards and ask myself, is it viable for me to save $40,000? For me, the answer was no. It should have taken way too long and would have needed me to make choices that I wasn't prepared to make. So I started investing in higher risk opportunities. I would invest in venture capital. I would invest in specific shares. And this, for me, is a high risk but high return opportunity that allowed me to double my money every so often. And so I was able to accumulate that lump sum pretty quickly. And then, or not quickly, but faster than if I had gone the saving route. And then I had to think about, when I'm in school, how do I survive? I don't have an income, I don't have a job, but I need a certain amount of money every month. And I could have made a choice to save the whole amount at once, but instead I made an investment in a fixed income instrument that paid me interest, a portion of my principal and interest every month. And that's how I was able to survive while I was in school. That paid for my utilities, my groceries, my enjoyment, and that kind of thing. So you see how that value of excellence led me to the goal of do an MBA. And that goal of do an MBA completely influenced how I invested for almost 5 years. Now, looking beyond that, looking at a different value, legacy, this is very linked to excellence. And it would be very difficult for me to be able to build a legacy without that opportunity or without living my life in excellence. And of course, the MBA has accelerated my ability to do that. So when I think about legacy, I think about, how do we put Africa on the map? That's my definition of legacy. And so even starting Africa's Pocket is part of that legacy. And a lot of people don't think about the business they're running as an investment, but it is. You are either sacrificing an income, and that's an investment that you're putting into the company, because if you worked if you were to go back into the job market, you would be earning a certain amount of money every year. So you should value that as an investment that you're putting into your business. And you should think about the return as part of your portfolio. So for me, because I decided to go into entrepreneurship as the way that I would pursue my legacy value, then it changed the way that I would invest. So I mentioned that before I was investing in venture capital. Now I don't do that because Africa's Pocket is a huge part of my portfolio. And so I don't want to keep adding more investments that look like Africa's Pocket, businesses that are run by young people, that are innovative, etc., into my portfolio, because then I will be taking too much of a risk. So this legacy decision has influenced the way that I invest, because now I'm no longer investing in venture capital, and I'm looking for much more safe opportunities that generate cash flow, so that in 10 years, if for some reason Africa's Pocket hasn't worked, then I have been making these other investments that are able to provide my future children, my family, with the comforts that they need. And so that's really the third step. Once you've understood your values, you've created your goals based on those values, you now say, how do I invest to achieve those goals? And that's why it's so difficult when somebody asks, I have this much money, what do I invest in? It's so difficult to give you an answer just like that, because I need to understand, what do you care about? how does it rank among the other things you care about? And then how, you know, what is the goal that you now create from that thing? Because let's look at legacy. I could decide, instead of building Africa's Pocket, that I will build homes, and that could leave a legacy, right? So it's really very an interesting exercise and process that we'll go through in Investable to get you to a place where you're like, okay, this is my value, this is the goal that I create from that value, or that I derive from that value, and then based on this goal, this is how I'm going to invest to be able to achieve what I want to achieve. So those are 3 steps. The 4th step is in periodically taking a step back and asking yourself, are these values still my values? Are they in the same priority that they were in before? So I mentioned excellence and legacy. For me, the order changed significantly after I finished school and when I started Africa's Pocket. And other things in life happen. You get married or get a partner, you have children, or you have some event in your life, someone gets ill, or a worldwide event happens. It completely changes your perspective, and it can change your values. It's difficult for it to change your values, but it can change your values. But more often than not, it will change your prioritization of those values. So I like to do this every year around my birthday. I'll just go back and ask myself, are these still the values that I hold dear? What's the order? What am I focusing on? Sometimes it can be all 6, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 2. It really depends on what's happening in my life and what capacity I have. And then I can then go back and look at my investment plan and say, are these things still making sense? And this has been super interesting and useful even when there's a constraint in resources. So last year was Corona. A lot of things didn't go according to plan. I guess it's still Corona. It's still a pandemic. So a lot of things don't go according to plan. You probably didn't make as big a bonus as you thought, or business didn't do as well as you thought, or you thought you were going to get an investor and you were not able to. All sorts of things happen. So how do those events then change what you're investing in and how you're investing? And those are really the 4 steps. So start by understanding your values, and then make goals based on those values. Then make an investment plan based on those goals, and then periodically go back and ask yourself if those things are still the same. And this will give you a lot of clarity. Investable is actually that process that I've taken you through. We really drill down on helping you figure out what those things are first, because those are what help you stick to your plan. And then of course we spend a lot of time helping you understand what is available, what are the investment opportunities even available to you, so that you can kind of play a little game of Tetris and say, this value, this goal, these are the investments that I'm going to use to achieve that goal. So with that, I will ask you, what are your values? Do you know what you're kind of working towards? What instinctively stands out to you as something that you want to pursue or something that you care about? Write them down in the comments below, and I will be sending you very good vibes from my pocket to yours.